Thank you so much all for being here. We will open this up to audience questions, so be prepared to ask them. But I'd like to start with some questions of my own. I'm going to start with Lauren. Horsegirls was featured in the Blacklist in 2020, right?
Correct, yeah.
Oh.
I
thought I had that one.
Correct. Could you talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the story and just how much the script has changed since then?
Yes, so people hate when I say this, but this was the very first script I ever wrote, unfortunately. So this was inspired by my best friend Mackenzie Breed and her family's story. It was in 2018, and I was actually with her when we found out that her mom, Sandy, was diagnosed with cancer for a third time. And unfortunately, her dad did pass away in a car accident, and her sister, Margarita, does need a full-time caretaker. And when Mackenzie learned about her mom's diagnosis, and we kind of knew it wasn't looking good, she had said, I've never thought about, I'm 26, I've never thought about what happens to Marguerite, because I never thought I would have no parents at 26. And I was sitting there and I could not understand and take that in, because I was like, why does this happen to people? And I remember thinking, like, what a fascinating idea. I've never thought of this in my life. Like, what does happen to those that need caretakers? And at the same time, Sandy had, she was like, I want Marguerite to get away and go, have fun for a little bit and just kind of escape home life for a second. And she had gone to this convention for a TV show that she was obsessed with. And I remember we had gone with her, myself and Mackenzie had gone with her to just kind of like chaperone. And Marguerite was just like, okay, I'll see you later. And we were like, oh, okay. Like, this was this girl who, when we went out to Outback Steakhouse, like, couldn't even order her dinner. But then when we were at this fandom, she was like, peace. And so we were like, wow. I remember thinking, like, I love when someone has just kind of a niche hobby or interest that they finally feel accepted and a part of this group. And when I saw that, married with the idea of obviously the heavier stuff, I was like, this has to be written. And then of course, I had seen on YouTube these hobby horsing videos. And now, thanks to TikTok, quite a few people have heard of hobby horsing because it's a bit viral, and people will be like, wow, these girls can jump so high. And I remember, back in 2018, I'd be like, have you heard of hobby horsing? And people would be like, no. And now at least I get like a 50% like, oh, I've seen those videos. And I just thought, like, maybe this is the perfect marriage of these two ideas in a way. So it is loosely inspired, quite a bit on this family story. And when I wrote that first draft, I wrote it in 2 nights because I was just so obsessed with the idea. It was terrible. It was nothing close to this. But then, we found out it made the Blacklist, and that was how I heard what the Blacklist was. And in 2020, and by that point, it really helped us get the script off the ground, and the incredible Alex Madigan partnered up with me, a producer on the film, and then shortly after, really trying to get this thing done, she gave me so many incredible notes of like how to make this feasible and how to, she always looked at it as like, we will shoot this. And I couldn't believe that as someone obviously where you're like, this is my dream, that will never happen. And she helped me carry it to the finish line. Then she was the one who introduced us to Michael Sherman, who helped us bring this film forward. It was really the two of them as producers. And from there, I mean, the script pretty much stayed the same. And it was an amazing thing to witness, to go from, this idea that you write at 2 a.m. in your head to now being something that's on screen at Tribeca is like, I feel like I won the lottery in the best way for having people take a chance on me. But so that's my very long-winded answer of like what it's inspired by, and also like how the script, it was a crappy first draft, but then it really did come to fruition by like draft 4 and kind of stayed the same the entire way through.
Yeah. Oh, it was worth the wait.
Truly.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question to Lillian now. So your Margarita is sort of the beating heart of this film in every way. I was just wondering if you could talk about a little bit the process of inhabiting the character, and also if it was like collaborative in any way? And yeah, just your experience.
Well, it was definitely a very collaborative thing. Yeah, getting the script, it was amazing. I loved the character, fell in love with her. It was so cool. When I was cast and I found out that Margarita was based on a real person, Marguerite, I was so excited. And I got to meet her through Zoom and meet her mom and ask just a bunch of questions. And her autism presents itself very different from me. So I went on this journey of exploring what that meant and how to get that right. And I put pieces of myself in, used pieces of Marguerite and pieces of fictional version that Lauren put in. And yeah, we all worked together to create this. And then, yeah, as the other characters were cast, it slowly built into this beautiful thing of what Marguerite turned out to be.
That's beautiful. Thank you for doing such an awesome job.
Thank you.
Okay, my final question is for Jerod. You bring so many layers to the coach, like his grief and his love for his partner, and I was just curious of what first drew you to wanting to be a part of this project.
Jerod.
Sorry.
All good. First of all, just the script. Once I got it, the producer, Michael Sherman, was kind enough to say, you should read this. And I read it, and it was very visceral. And Coach just jumped out at you. And I talked to Lauren for a long time, just telling her I just love this. Just because of the dynamics between all the characters. It was very visceral and it was palpable, and it was just a world. She built the whole world, and understanding those different dynamics and how he's interwoven into it, it was a no-brainer. And then once I got a chance to meet Lillian over Zoom, which was for a few hours, because we hit it off right away. We was jamming, and there was a vibe there, and I was ready to suit up. And then, yeah, the script, it was just all there, and we just played. Yeah.
I've been dying to say this because we've had 3 Q&As now. So initially, I wrote Coach as a 60-year-old white man. I just have to say this because I truly, it was like, Michael Sherman was like, you have to meet Jerod. He's an incredible actor. I worked with him before. Maybe we can put him as Hank or, something. Maybe we can sneak him in, but regardless, you have to meet him. And it was within 10 seconds of logging onto Zoom. I was like, oh my God, this is Coach. And it was so funny because before he arrived to set, like our crew would be like, so who's Coach? And we'd show the photo and everyone would be like, I pictured someone different. And I go, yes, because I wrote him different, but oh my God, Jerod, I can't speak highly enough of him, and he was just so, just everything you talked about and raising your 13-year-old daughter, and just, I truly was, it was no brainer. Even the producers were like, what about Jerod? And it was just like, we're not auditioning, we're just offering him the role. Like this is, and it really is a testament to, I just saw his heart and his personality and his, just love for the script, and I don't know, you all can clearly see it on screen. It steals the show. So I'm like, that is such a testament to who he is, and from day one, he came, I got you. And as like a first-time director who feels so much imposter syndrome when people are coming up to me going like, are you on the art team? And I'm like, oh, I actually wrote directed it. And he's someone who is just like, I got your back, we're gonna do this. And he walked on set and just embodied Coach and talked with these girls and went above and beyond and went above and beyond with Lillian. And they both did, but I just have been dying to tell this story because he's too mobile.
Really quick. First of all, there's a few hobby Horsegirls here.
Yes.
We just want to give them a shout out. Because these young ladies put a lot of hours and time in choreographing and everything, so I just wanted to do that. And just to add, what Lillian provided for myself selfishly, there was a kinship there right away. Because Coach suffered a loss and herself is about to experience one. So whether subconsciously or consciously, there was a connection. Because Coach is at the end of his rope when you see him. Until Lillian Margarita walks in and gives a second wind and it keeps him going. So, yeah.
Thank you all so much. much for sharing that. Now we're gonna open it up to audience questions. If anyone has a question, I'll start with you.
First of all, Lillian, I love your outfit. And you too.
Thank you.
Second of all,
Wait, so
Yeah.
I love your outfit, girl.
Thank
It's kind of bland.
No, it's good.
Eliza.
The honesty of autism right
Yeah.
Margarita.
I am also autistic.
Yes.
I wanted to know how did you guys include little bits of yourself into the character? Like what?
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So living with autism, you understand that there's bits and pieces that aren't necessarily seen or understood by everyone. So there were things that were very clear about Margarita that I wanted to bring up here, tools and things that she uses that I think would be useful to have in the movie but aren't necessarily talked about. It was very clear that she struggled with motor functioning. So I was like, would it be realistic that she could not tie her shoes? And I don't know if you noticed, but if you happen to get a chance to watch it again, we used laces that don't need tying. So they have little bumps on them that you tug through the little holes and they stay in place. And I was very adamant about using a sunflower lanyard. So that's hung on the fridge. And if you know what a sunflower lanyard is, something for people to recognize that someone has a neurological difference and may need support without having to say it. So those people within the community can spot a sunflower lanyard and offer support. So there are things like that that I put.
I mean, even the bike.
Yeah, the bike. Yes.
It wasn't originally a trike.
It wasn't a tricycle at the beginning. I was like, I can ride a bike, but it's a risk. And I offered the idea of a tricycle, and at first they were like, I don't know, that seems
We didn't know what it looked like.
so wrong. I'm like, I'm telling you, you want it to look like a horse? Tricycle is the way to go. And yeah, that's what ended up in there.
Yeah. Lillian is an autism advocate too, and there's just, and she's also a twin her twin also has autism, and she was our autism advocate on set. We also have another autism advocate, Alex Plank, and truly, you talk about, it's gotta be probably exhausting to have to repeat the same information over and over again, especially to those of us who are neurotypical and wanting to understand, and I'm writing it based off a person, but at the same time, there's all these things that Lillian would bring up and, consistently bring up. And it was so necessary and helpful to creating it, and that's why I think, obviously it is what it became in the movie, because a lot of the times, even down to, like you said, the costumes, every little detail, Lillian was and Chloe were so adamant, and another executive producer, Alex Plank, who was also an autism consultant as well, they would just always provide this information. Even if we didn't ask, they would provide it, which was so helpful, because as a filmmaker, you're like, I just want to tell this story correctly. And you do feel sometimes I feel honestly annoying sometimes, being like, is this? And the way they would approach it, they would always just be like, hey, just so you're aware, even down to the trike, it was like, just so you're aware, I don't think Margarita would ride a bicycle, and me, Lillian, like she said, it's a risk. And I'm like, duh, of course. And that's why I think it's just so important to listen to your actors who come, having done the work. And that was her to a T. And I feel so beyond lucky every day. The cast, I always say, directing's 90% casting. So I'm like, I got to ride on their coattails, because they were just incredible the entire way through.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Yes.
Yeah, a quick technical question. First of all, the film is great. The casting is perfect. It looks like you shot it in the 1:3 aspect ratio, and I was wondering what which I love the 1:3 aspect ratio, but how did that figure into why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, myself personally, when I wrote the script, and often, you're your own worst critic, and for me, when I would reread the script over and over again, oftentimes, I would find myself being like, is this a little bit corny? And oftentimes, like, especially the way I would write Margarita's world when she floats, or when she, when the boxes float, or at the end when she floats, or all these different things, or when the sound goes out. I didn't know, when I was writing it, I knew what it looked like, and that was in 2018, and then 6 years later I came to direct it, and by that point I was like, my number one fear was just that it felt very young and childish, and that's the last thing I want to do when I'm telling a story about a 22-year-old woman with autism. And so for me personally, I felt like the more grounded we could keep the movie, the better. And I wanted it to have like a timeless kind of nostalgic feeling, in which like the only time you see an iPhone is that one time it rings during class. And I didn't even I tried really hard to hide it, because I'm like, I don't want to say it's, a period piece, especially as an indie movie. You're like, we can't get picture cards like that. But I wanted it to feel timeless and almost like in this kind of removed world that helped make it feel like we were just in a different world for a second. Like in a little town that maybe isn't updated and current, because I felt like in that way it would really help ground the movie, so that it didn't come off very polished and very lovely and Disney, because we're trying to tell this very heavy story mixed with this humor. So the aspect ratio was also something that my DP and I finally nailed down in prep, and we were like, I think this is what's also going to help carry this movie and really flesh out the tone of it. Thank you.
One more question. Right there with the glasses.
Fantastic movie, so beautiful, so poetic. I had a question about the songs, the Bogged American Pie, and obviously She's Fast, She's Strong. Did you have those in mind when you were writing the script, or when did those join the story?
Yeah, so the Fastest Girl in the World song was in it since day one. I just thought it would be so funny if this character who has a theme song about herself, it became realized in the movie. And so originally it was a choir, and I almost felt like, again, once we were finally developing the tone and I was talking with my composer, I was like, I kind of want it to not feel like a choir at this point, because I feel like it would come off too comedic. And so we found an incredible artist, Lillian's friend, who is a singer with autism. Her name's Zelma Sedone, if you want to look her up. She's amazing, and we brought her in to do the vocals for Fastest Girl in the World, but it was always in the script. And then American Pie, same thing. My story with that is, I just thought, what would be the world's worst karaoke song of all time? A 9-minute song that changes tempo consistently. And then when we got to set, I was like, I'm so sorry. Like this poor, once again, Lillian just handled everything in her stride. It was like stunts, live horses, singing karaoke, like everything we threw at her. I'm like, okay, we're gonna need time. Neurotypical or not, I'm like, oh my God, who can sing American Pie at karaoke when it's just a piano track? And this, superstar, just like showed up. The in-ear piece wasn't working when we recorded it, and yet she brought it home. Like it was incredible. And so from the beginning, it was like, I want American Pie, I want them to perform American Pie, and we were lucky enough to get those like karaoke track rights, like writing letters to Don McLean, because we were like, I think it would really bring this movie around, and we did. So that was also a huge miracle as well. But yeah, it all started from me thinking, how funny would it be if someone attempted to sing American Pie in karaoke? And she did it.
Perfect blend of funny and sad.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today, but I'd like to thank the team for being here and making this wonderful film. Before you leave, please vote for the Audience Award.
So you know the vote. No, I'm serious. You know the vote. Just make sure you're on the same page. Or we're gonna do high knees in here. So please do that.
If you have any questions on how to do that, please approach one of our Audience Award attendees who will be happy to help you. Thank you and good night.